With Halloween drawing closer at the time of this video's release, what's a perfect staple of Halloween and horror that's relevant to this time of year?
Carved pumpkins!
No, something we can make a video about.
Give our fans pumpkins!
No pumpkins, I did that already. Okay, you get no more guesses. Today we're talking about the mysterious and sometimes terrifying ghosts.
Ooh, spooky, scary ghosts.
Now, the lore of ghosts in fiction is quite extensive, with hundreds of different examples, but only 10 spots on this list, so our choices will boil down to which ghosts stand out to us the most, whether they be iconic or obscure yet entertaining. To set up a few bits of criteria, the characters have to be defined as ghosts or a common synonym like spirit, specter, phantom, yokai, etc., show general traits of ghosts like phasing through things, levitation, or possession, and have some sort of connection to the dead, whether the character was formerly alive or associates with the supernatural spirit world. Now, to truly get into the theme of ghosts and Halloween, this video will be partially haunted. Ooh.
Oh, I don't like scary stuff.
Don't worry about the ghosts wandering around here, only some of them want to possess you.
Oh, don't remind me.
Your soul is forfeit.
The demons! What? I didn't say that.
Alright, enough of this pointless skit. Here are our top 10 ghosts. Number 10, Boo Berry the cereal mascot. The monster-themed cereals are a staple of Halloween pop culture, with Count Chocula, Frankenberry, and Boo Berry being the big three that always stuck around. And of those mascots, Mr. Berry, or Boo if we can be less formal, seemed to have the scariest presence. In many commercials, he often startles Count Chocula and Frankenberry, while Boo Berry is never frightened by them in return. Boo Berry has the standard ghost traits of appearing out of nowhere and walking through solid objects, which I guess would be horrifying in its own right. There's nothing here and all of a sudden there's a dead guy with cereal. But Count Chocula and Frankenberry are monsters who should be used to the supernatural, yet are scared of a little ghost with the voice of Peter Lorre. Either these monsters are lame or Boo Berry is the most terrifying thing in the world. Granted, if you go off the box, the marshmallows are called Spooky Fun Marshmallows. How do these differ from your ordinary run-of-the-mill cereal marshmallows? What sinister special ingredient could Boo Berry use to make his spooky marshmallows?
Souls! Just kidding. Your soul.
Number 9, Hisako from Killer Instinct. It's one of my lists, so a fighting game character being here was inevitable. She's probably my favorite fighting game ghost. Since I gave her a big spotlight on a previous Halloween list, I'll keep it brief. She's this list's resident Onryo, one of those grudge ring ghosts that's bent on revenge. Her attacks slash you with her blade or possess you to make your body go all MK4 Tanya fatality. I like how her body flickers like a bad TV signal. However, despite her terrifying appearance, she's like the nicest person in this game if she was able to show off her real personality. Her only reason for fighting is because her entire family and village was killed by a bunch of renegade soldiers, and her land, which was finally at peace after like 400 years, is being disturbed by the evil Ultratech.
Yay, tragic!
Thankfully, Hisako had her story resolved after she obtained her father's katana, turning her into Shin Hisako, who basically plays like regular Hisako, but now she's a kami spirit who's bright, shiny, calm, and happy. And she has a smile you can trust. Gee, well, at least she looks like she's enjoying the ghost life now. Number 8, one of the Pac-Man ghosts. Which one? I guess Clyde. He's always been the rebel of the group.
They have names?
You'd be surprised at how detailed Pac-Man's lore is. They even have a homeworld that can't decide on a name. The main iconic ghost gang are the 4 that chased Pac-Man around, consisting of Blinky, Inky, Pinky, and Clyde.
One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong.
Which one would that be?
Probably Probably the red one.
Besides the whole joke of, oh god, his name doesn't rhyme, Clyde's different because he doesn't have a set pattern to follow Pac-Man in the games. While the other three ghosts take a path based on Pac-Man's movements, Clyde goes in random directions that are unrelated to Pac-Man's path. So if they meet, so be it. Clyde found lunch. The name origin of Clyde, though, is more telling of his character than you'd expect.
It's like Bonnie and Clyde. Is that why?
Is that what you want the answer to be?
Yes.
Then sure, just for you.
Woohoo!
But actually, the original game showed that the ghosts had a slew of alternate names, like Blinky, who follows Pac-Man based on his movements, being called Shadow or Chaser in Japanese to reflect his enemy role. The various other names Clyde were known as are Feigned Ignorance and Crybaby, helping us deduce this pixel blob is not as shrewd as his siblings and is a coward. Perhaps his family said, let's chase this yellow circle guy around, and Clyde was too scared to stand up for himself and say no, yet also too scared to confront Pac-Man, yet also too stupid to figure out a proper game plan to avoid him, so he wanders around aimlessly. Number 7. Dead Man from DC Comics. You know what his main superpower is?
Dead!
No, his name doesn't work like Melt Man. Dead Man is all about possessing others. His ghostly form is more complicated than he died and now this is his spirit. A Hindu god decided to give his soul powers after he was murdered so he could get revenge on his assassin, and thus this superhero was born with a very right-to-the-point name. He found his calling by joining Justice League Dark, the group of heroes that deal with the supernatural. Dead Man's especially useful for getting into restricted areas when the heroes can't find a way to sneak in by possessing someone who can get them in. And when he's in that person's body, he still retains his talents he had when he was alive, being an expert acrobat. Plus, he's the funny guy of the group, at least in the Justice League Dark movie. Between the body controlling, circus performing, and one-liners, there should at least be one aspect of his character you'll enjoy.
That is the coolest job ever. Wisecracking, acrobatic assassin, arsonist.
You're aware he never lights things on fire.
Ghost.
Number 6. Casper, the friendly ghost. The friendliest ghost you know, but that's not saying much. Have you met the other ghosts in Casper's universe? His ghost uncles are terrible. Casper doesn't have much friendly competition. Casper is one of those fictional characters you just seem to know about, like the Smurfs or Betty Boop. I haven't seen anything with them, but they look good on commemorative mugs. That was the case until Paramount Pictures kept making those Casper movies for whatever reason. Casper was in animation and other media as far back as the 1940s, but he experienced a big boom in attention starting in the mid-90s. I'm not sure if Casper was popular enough to maintain a full film series, but we got one. Consequently, he was a character I saw quite a bit in my childhood, clearly sticking with us since we remember all of those films so fondly.
Yes. Was one with Hilary Duff and one wasn't?
Get your Casper Cinematic Universe lore correct. Casper and Wendy with Hilary Duff was the third movie direct-to-video. The Casper writers would not just introduce some secondary character from the comics right off the bat. The Casper movies have finesse and only introduce us to side characters after we learn about the most relevant characters first. Like Casper's dumb uncles with one notable trait each. There's the one with bad breath, the fat one, and this guy. He's from New Jersey. As you could tell by the sarcasm in this segment, these movies were average to subpar and mostly got their life when TV stations like Cartoon Network wanted something to show during a Halloween marathon. Number 5. Koganei Musashi from Ranma 1/2.
She's funny. You don't expect her to be funny, but she is.
The best way I can describe Koganei is ghost deadpan humor, as in she does or says many things like a serious ghost haunting the living world, but it leads to something funny happening where she means no harm, like setting the table for dinner, but she counts the plates in a really creepy way, or starts a conversation by threatening to put a curse on you.
It's just the formal ghost greeting.
Whenever characters want to know why she acts so creepy when doing something innocent, her reaction is basically, I don't know, I'm a ghost. Whenever I do things, they naturally look all ghoulish. She hates some things that traditional ghosts would be perfectly fine with, like being left in a cave alone. Without the ghostly aura and dead stare, she'd be your standard schoolgirl who just wants to hang out and brush her ridiculously long hair.
I like her bangs.
Overall, this episode has entertaining jokes about ghost cliches, and Koganei is much more amusing than that other girl ghost Rumiko Takahashi made up.
Yeah, she's not funny at all. She's a scary child. Scary girl ghost. You know I'm afraid of little girl ghosts! Joey Tribbiani.
Number 4. Space Ghost.
He's only half ghost.
I'm not sure if that's how his space human to ghost anatomy is split up. It doesn't matter, he can be here, he has all the right attributes. Ghost isn't his name, he's from the Ghost Planet, which I don't think would have such a name if ghosts were not the primary inhabitants. And he entertains me with his various guest stars and hilarious antics with his talk show crew on the world's greatest talk show, Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Plus, he phases into the set of nearly every episode of that show, not to mention he uses his Inviso power to get over to his desk. Space Ghost in his 1960s cartoon showed off his powers more practically, which are based on ghosts, like turning invisible and ghost rays. Thanks, Hanna-Barbera. Really, this is just some obscure cartoon that we only know about because it was the alleged job of Tad Ghostel, aka Space Ghost, before his talk show hit it big. Despite the fact this job gave Space Ghost less to do with his powers, he still had to deal with villains from time to time. Like Chad Ghostel, his previously unseen evil twin escaped lunatic brother. Surprisingly, this character was original to Coast rather than the first cartoon like the other characters. And they said it was impossible to create any new entities with its $42 budget. I'm not sure if Space Ghost was dead in either series, and I did say at the start of this video that the entries had to be dead. So if you look to Aqua Teen Hunger Force : movie for theaters, Space Ghost was killed off there in his cameo, meaning he fulfilled all the criteria at some point.
That's so anticlimactic. I miss him already.
Number 3. Boo from Mario. If you've ever played a Mario game, you're likely familiar with the little marshmallow ghosts known as the Boos. And if you ever get drunk while playing, then you're familiar with the other Boos. The Boo Ghosts have the general game plan of creeping up on Mario when his back is turned, but when Mario turns in their direction, they stop in fear and cover their faces because they are cowards who can't look you eye to eye, man to dead man. You, sir, would not last a day in the real world. Enjoy your scaring. When they band together, they overcome their anxiety in getting up on Mario. Still, the true sign of a coward: can't take on a single plumber alone, you've gotta call all your friends.
How did they die?
That's a great thought, and the answer is that Boos are enemies that,
Were they born that way?
That's the exact explanation I was going to give without any hesitation or uncertainty. They were born as ghosts.
How are Boos born?
Oh, would you look at that? No more time for questions. Hey, you know what's more important? Finding the best Boo out there to give the full honor of number 3 to. I guess we should go with their supposed monarch.
King of the Boos! I'm assuming that's the one with the crown.
Astute observation. Yes, he is.
Yay! Point for me!
The point system never existed. Number 2. Every ghost in Pokemon. Fine, we'll decide on the best Pokemon ghosts soon, but first, a retrospective. Ghost-type Pokemon are mysterious. We don't really know where they came from. Are they naturally ghosts? I mean, they can hatch from an egg as a ghost. There isn't any evidence my Ghastly had a previous life, is there? Ghost-type Pokemon in the first gen were hyped up, with everyone telling us the Ghost-type is the only thing that can defeat the almighty Psychic Pokemon. Thanks for ignoring the super effective bugs! However, Gen 1 only had one damaging ghost move based on the user's stats, being Lick. Oh, it's so powerful. Gen 2 did not do much better for the ghosts, but they did make one of the best ghost moves in Shadow Ball. We got one new ghost type with Misdreavus, and you could not catch her until the last cave in the game after you beat all the gyms. Thanks for playing. Gen 3 and onwards gave Ghost type the proper support, adding some of the more unique designs in the game, like the bezazzled Sableye, Duskull, and Bayonet, who the Pokédex keeps reminding me is a vengeful doll that came to life after his owner abandoned him, feeding on hatred and popping up in dark alleys. I also like that his zipper makes it look like he's smoking a cigarette.
Oh my god, it's really scary.
If you think that's bad, the ghost Pokemon Yamask is actually the spirit of a person if you go by the Pokédex. The mask it holds is supposed to be its face when it was a human.
What? Why do they have such problems?
The funny thing is, every Yamask holds the same face, so I like to think Yamask are actually just the spirits of one family. It's just that family had like 1,000 children and they were all identical. This theory's lame. Then of course you have all of the actual ghosts in Pokemon, with the most famous one being the soul of the dead Marowak in Lavender Town from Gen 1. It was a spooky jet black ghost that spoke, dodged Pokeballs, and you needed a special limited edition item from Silphco to figure out who it was. No, not that item. There we go. But enough of this meandering. If I had to choose one definitive ghost, I'm going with the first ghost we ever saw in the Pokemon anime, when we hardly knew what a ghost Pokemon was, being the ghost of Maiden's Peak.
What?
What's the question? Did you see her work with that talking Ghastly to impersonate her so she can keep her legend alive? Ghastly made her powers look badass. She's busy and needs to wait at her rock for her true love, who she's been waiting for over the course of about 100 years.
You should never wait that long for any man.
So yeah, best ghost in Pokemon ever. See ya. Get your honorable mentions here. Ghost from Ghost. I don't know his actual name since I've never seen the movie, but I do know the iconic scene where Ghost character Patrick Swayze sculpts pottery with Demi Moore, which is the most important scene in the movie, I think. Shenko from Darkstalkers. I said in my zombie video that she could appear on some sort of ghost list, so here she is. The Flying Dutchman from SpongeBob. He's led to some pretty funny episodes, like the one where SpongeBob and Patrick join his crew and get locked in the dungeon, so they have to escape through the perfume department, which is also on his ship. Fun fact, that live-action footage is from inside of a Macy's.
Jaunty.
Slimer, but because of Ecto Cooler and not because of Ghostbusters. Charlie Brown's ghost costume made of a sheet when he only gets a rock instead of candy when trick-or-treating. This costume is a reminder that the Peanuts world is some dystopian society where the quality of your trick-or-treat candy is based on how well received your costume is by the homeowner. Who keeps a bowl of rocks in their house for Halloween anyway? And finally, Danny Phantom. He can walk through walls, disappear, and fly. He's much more unique than the other guy, or so they say. If you want to know why Danny ended up outside of this list, I don't really know. I can't even explain my own decision algorithm sometimes. Number 1. There have been a lot of ghost movies. They've reached the genres of horror, fantasy, suspense, romance, comedy, and more. But there's one ghost who embodies all of those aspects in his movie. Beetlejuice. That being said, the romance in his movie was more of a forced arranged marriage that is hardly romantic, but he represents the other elements pretty well. Beetlejuice is basically the reverse exorcist, or bioexorcist as he calls himself. After you die, he'll get the living out of your house with his scare tactics using impressive practical effects. I can't really define a limit in Beetlejuice's power. He's not supposed to be strong, but rather effective at being an extraordinary ghost. He can possess, teleport, transform himself and other things, send people seemingly anywhere, and most importantly, scare. If his magical ghost abilities aren't scary, then they're useless to him. Maybe he had more in his cartoon, but honestly, I don't think I've seen that in 20 years, so I can't really comment. Have you seen a Judgment Meter?
I'm dying.
Excellent input. The only way he can be defeated seems to be the same way you summon him, saying his name 3 times. You could also use another method, but spoilers. Beetlejuice in action is best left to seeing it for yourself, so my descriptions can't do him full justice. Beetlejuice taught future generations to scare and to appreciate the works of Harry Belafonte, making him the #1 ghost to me. Now, what did you think of these choices? I know I omitted some very popular ghosts, so let me know some of your favorites in the comments, whether I discussed them or not. Anyway, thank you all for watching, stay tuned for a few outtake blooper things if you like post-video content, and I will see you in the next video.
Do you need me for anything else? I can't talk in this voice for very long.
I'll call you when I need you next.
Okay, whenever you need me.
The big 4Kids edit in this episode was they called ward paper anti-ghost stickers. However, they did not censor the cross later in the episode, so I guess those two cancel each other out. The most topical thing you'll hear all day is the plot to the Casper movie was perpetuated because Casper watched an episode of Hard Copy. I'm not kidding.
What's hard copy, Mr. Top 10 List?
Never mind. So when I was working on this list and the zombie list, a viewer by the name Simon Kim actually requested for top 10 ghosts, so looks like you predicted the future. I was in the middle of making it when you made your suggestion. Number 5, Koganei Musashi from Ranma 1/2.
Koganei.
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 Koganei. Yes?
Whack Donalds. That's not the same.
Thank you for explaining the hard parts.